The Billy Carson-Wes Huff debate. What a thing this has been. But I don't want to just contribute in all the ways that the Christian apologists have been covering this video. I want to talk about the Christian response from these apologists to that debate. Because I've seen clip after clip after clip that just really rubs me the wrong way. And it took a while before I could put my finger on it. But here it is, and it's one simple word: hypocrisy. Where is the Christian love? These very same apologists that oftentimes disagree with each other, debate each other, put down each other, are now co-aligned. They have a common enemy they can group up against. Someone that is outside of Christianity enough, but still professing spiritual things, that almost all Christians of all denominations across the board can say, you know what, he's definitely wrong. Like, I think you're wrong and you think I'm wrong, but there's some actual debate there because the scriptures actually say both of those contradicting things, and neither of us can really admit to contradictions, but we can't disagree with what you say is in the Bible, only your interpretation of that. But when it comes to Billy Carson, oh, what a heretic, what a fool. In fact, just this morning, we got this post from Cameron. Billy Carson has united Christian apologists more than any atheist ever could. Yeah, you're right. He's the perfect mix for everyone to be able to go after and feel victorious. It makes Christianity look more reliable, consistent, sane when you can compare it against something like this. I see the same thing with Mormonism or Islam. You think if you can point out the ridiculousness, the silliness, the lack of historical evidence, yada, 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 in these other things, it makes yours look more true. But most of the time, the irony of not seeing how this very thing is happening to yourself is completely lost on them. Getting back to Cameron, here's what Cameron had to say.
And Wes utterly decimated Billy in this section.
Utterly decimated. And he's not the only one to be using words like this. Christians are using very harsh and epic language to describe what an utter failure Billy Carson was, how he was totally demolished, how he was epically destroyed, career-ending mishap, and on and on and on. And there seems to be this sense of glee. Now, I'm no apologist for Billy Carson. In fact, the more that I've learned about this individual, the more that I also cannot find a way to respect him. But I'm so tired of this debate culture, totally owned, totally dominated, how embarrassing. Like, in general, this is pretty small and pedantic, but from Christians, I think it's more than that. I think it's hypocritical. And many people don't like when an atheist calls out Christian standards against Christians because they say, who are you to judge? You don't even believe in this God. But again, it's an internal critique of what Jesus says Christians are supposed to be like. So let's start with the hypocrisy factor, and we'll get into a few other things like the in-group, out-group, or the echo chambers, the tribalism, the debate culture. Those are just a few things I want to touch on quickly. I don't plan on having this be a long video. So as an example, here's Ruslan, who has been coming up on my feed like crazy lately for some reason. And in this screenshot, he is bragging about this #1 comment that he posted on Billy Carson's 3-hour excuse video that has since been taken down. And he's bragging about how it was #1 and how Billy blocked him and took it down. And if you see it, it starts with Christmas came early from Christian content creators. I think he meant 4 Christian content creators after this dumpster fire of a response. He goes on to explain what's wrong with it, but just an opening sentence like that again was the most upvoted comment under Billy's video. And Ruslan is turning Christmas, which is supposed to be a recognition of what? The gift of Jesus Christ being given to humanity. But instead, he recognizes the materialistic form of Christmas where one gets gifts. And what is the Billy Carson downfall a gift to? Christian content creators, because that will give them more things to talk about / insult / make fun of / judge / be completely hypocritical to, allowing them to get more ad revenue and views and everything else. That's what it means to be good for content. Again, I'm checking my own eye for the log because here I am making content off of this, but I'm not espousing Christian moral ethics. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with criticism, though I try not to make it personal or attacking, but many of these Christians do. Many of them have insulted Billy's intelligence, Billy's looks, Billy's style, Billy's background, and on and on and on, made it very personal. Quickly, just so you know, I'm being very fair. Of course there were Christians that handled this well. Of course there were Christians that just really disagreed with Billy, saw that his claims he had been making were not held up under scrutiny from Wes and are happy for their cause, their belief that the truth came to light. Other than not being able to look internally at some of the same consistency problems with books of the Bible that were called out against Billy for some of his sources, that's just a knowledge issue. That's not, to me, a heart or hypocrisy issue. And so that exists. And also, I don't know that much about Wes. This was the first time I saw Wes, but I really respect him from what I saw. He was kind and patient during the debate. He was clear. I believe he was earnestly trying to understand Billy's position as best as possible. Even the way he has handled what has happened to him. Again, Billy is trying to sue Wes and others involved. Billy is handling this horribly. Again, not defending Billy. And I feel for Wes, who agrees to this debate, does a good job, is ready, presents his side, and then has to deal with a lawsuit for what? So I feel that sense of injustice for Wes, and I think that's what a lot of Christian commenters are maybe latching onto, is if it had just been about the debate, maybe they would have let it go. But now Billy backed himself into a corner, and he made all of these responses, and he made all of these excuses, and he's showing up at people's houses, and he's trying to sue them. And yes, I agree, that is not good. But it's interesting because it is kind of a use case for something Jesus specifically spoke about. What about the verse where Jesus speaks about if someone sues you to take your shirt, offer them your coat also? Most of what I have heard from Christians is how they're excited that now, because of some of the things Billy said in his excuse video, it could give Wes ammo to counter-sue. Is that the correct attitude? Jesus, the lover of your soul, says turn over, give more, but Christians rile up about the possibility of counter-suing so that Wes wins? I mean, I just think it's so interesting, and I can hear all of the Christian excuses about what Jesus really meant, and in that context, it's more about forgiveness in general and not so much about the literal aspect of being sued and literally giving someone double what they've asked for, etc. I don't see it. I just see Christians cherry picking. I see Christians caring more about, I can get away with this because this looks like the justice and morality of today, that even a Christian has a right to sue when their reputation or income is being infringed upon, and thus this is totally justifiable. And by the way, I would think a countersuit is justifiable, but I'm not following the advice of Jesus for my moral guidelines. But Christians supposedly are. Where else in the Bible, though, do we see that the response in general might be a bit hypocritical? Well, Matthew 5:44 says, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. I haven't seen one Christian stop and pray for Billy. I haven't seen one that said, you know what, Billy learned a valuable lesson from Wes. He learned what true scholarship looks like. He learned what trying to be consistent with scripture looks like. And I'm going to pray for him now that God would use this moment to slow Billy down, to open his heart, to open his eyes, to give him the connections he needs to be able to learn something new. And with Billy's platform, think about what a great advocate he could be and pray that God would use him. What is not for good, that God would use for good. Not one Christian has prayed for Billy that I have seen publicly online, but the vast majority of them have criticized him, have insulted him, have reveled in his loss, have enjoyed his embarrassment. So you don't want to go as far as Jesus and offer up all of your possessions when being sued? Fine. But really, your response is not loving or peaceful. Colossians 4:6 says, let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Proverbs 15:1 says, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Do you know how many harsh words have been said and how much anger has been riled up by the Christian response? Not just the content creators that are putting this out there, but then go look at the Christian comments under those videos. It's like a license to hate. When Christians all have a common enemy, it's like anything goes. There's not much accountability going on there. There's not much grace or love or prayer or forgiveness or repentant hope. Where's the Holy Spirit? Where's the conviction? Where is acting out of the dwelling place of God in your heart? It doesn't look like it. Ephesians 4:15 says, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. Seems like this maturing is taking a long time. Seems like a rather base human reaction here. Matthew 7:1-3 says, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Philippians 2:3-4 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of the other. Has any Christian response video cared at all about Billy? I just don't think they have to. Again, there seems to be this justification of, oh, he's the loser now. We're untouchable. We won. clear as day. And again, the joy and the pride that they take from that, if you really believe you follow truth. First of all, you shouldn't need apologists. And second of all, if someone is clearly not in that truth, why the need to gang up like this? It seems this is what it is. Incredibly insecure. 1 Peter 3:9 says, do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing, because to this you were called, so that you may inherit a blessing. You were called to be persecuted and lose for Christ. And what is so funny is this isn't even that. This is a win for Christians. That's how they're seeing it. The false prophet, the Antichrist, has been taken down. Now that's the other thing, how you justify it. We'll get to that in a second. Let me read a couple more verses. Proverbs 10:12, hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers all wrongs. And 1 Corinthians 13 tells us what love is. It is kind, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it isn't proud, it doesn't dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, and it's not easily angered. And yet, those adjectives describe most of the Christian response videos to this debate that I have seen, easily, by far. So, the hypocrisy is a big one. The tribalism aspect to it here, I think, is interesting. There's a pile-on, there's some groupthink, there's some echo chambers, and you're going to find that in every corner of the internet. I have an echo chamber. I like to think that my comment section is more healthy than others. Of course, we have our trolls, both Christian and atheist, by the way. And sometimes I've been even disappointed by what I see in the comments, and I wish that some people didn't say certain things. So I also understand that these Christian content makers can't control what comments happen under them. But if you're leading the way for a certain kind of thing, then you should be a little bit responsible when that gets mimicked in your comment section.
Billy Carson's a joke. I don't know why you guys made Billy Carson someone great. What's so great about Billy Carson? He's a joke. He's a deceiver, liar, didn't know the Bible, did not know ancient sources. Why did people make him a big deal? Wes Huff, I'm glad he destroyed him. Anyone with Bible knowledge and knows history would destroy him. He's a joke, man.
And again, I'm sure there are standouts and there are people that did better than others, but across the board, the response doesn't look biblical to me. And again, I think that the tribalism and the echo chamber enhances that. It allows for it. It gives permission. You're the Christian who otherwise might have thought more about, man, that's sad. He was so lost and then he got embarrassed and this might hurt his career. But then you see videos of people slamming him, talking about how he deserves it and how good he'll never be able to speak again and yada, yada, yada. And you can kind of get this permission, like, yeah, you know what? That's true. He would have been hurting the message of Christ with what he was putting out into the world. He should be ridiculed. And you'll pull up a few verses where you can get the idea that that kind of thing is okay. You might turn to that same book that gave us advice about how to handle it properly, but it also says in Ephesians 5:11, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And I think that's what a lot of these Christian apologists think they're doing. They are advocates for God, which I'm not sure why he needs some YouTuber to be able to call out the evil in the world, but apparently he does. And so they are exposing, they are not letting the darkness take root. Psalm 139:21-22, do I not hate those who hate you, Lord, and abhor those who are in rebellion against you? I have nothing but hatred for them. I count them my enemies. Hilarious that someone would turn to an Old Testament book in the Psalms to justify their hate and anger of the opposition instead of just taking Jesus's words for it themselves. Again, the cherry picking that Christians do when it suits them is amazing to me. There's a hilarious verse, Matthew 18:15-17, that tells Christians step by step how they should go in treating and judging others. It says, if your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault, just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or tax collector. So it sounds like if you've given people enough shots, at the end you can just treat them horribly, which is how pagans and tax collectors were treated. And this is a New Testament verse right here. And this is also from Jesus. Maybe Christians aren't to blame. Maybe they're not hypocritical. Maybe there's just too many contradictory verses to choose from. John 2:15, so he made a whip out of cords and drove all of them from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. Jesus doesn't take lightly to mockery of God, and we who are called to be Christ-like won't either. And then the rampage begins. And so the last thing that this points out to me is what I have really changed my tune on, and that's debate culture. I thought that I would love to do debates. I thought that I would be all about it. And I still might very well in the future do that, but I haven't been as eager or as quick to, because the more that I watch debates and the more that I see the comments and the more that I see the reactions to these debates, very few, I think, are even positioned in a way to do what the ultimate goal of a debate would be to do, which is to have two sides be able to clearly put forward their opinions, their evidence for us, the audience. Instead, it becomes more about a smear campaign, more about who has the most clever comeback. These are hollow, shallow victories that happen on both sides. Superficial victories might be a better way to say it. It's a spectacle. Some are still good, some are more dialogue driven, which is wonderful, but most are just nasty. Even when you have a Christian that is doing a good job in these debates, like I think Wes Huff did. If this is the fallout, if this is the reaction from the Christian community, again, pray for Billy, applaud Wes's knowledge, talk about what can actually be learned from the debate, which was supposed to be the point of the debate, or maybe it's not. Was the point of the debate content for Christian content makers? Because yes, some Christians are covering the merits of what Wes said, but would they have been doing so if the debate hadn't blown up and gone viral because of Billy's reaction to it in the lawsuit? No. That tells me that it's not about the accurate content that Wes shared and the importance of Christians to echo that back out there. It's about the drama. That's what I think debates boil down to, unfortunately. I think they're still helpful. I know that my personal journey of deconstruction and deconversion was aided a lot by getting to hear two people go back and forth, even if it was kind of petty and pedantic. And so there's still a use for it. But again, Christians still partake in this debate culture, which has to be like the very opposite of most of the things their Jesus said, supposedly in the scriptures. But then they'll talk about how Jesus went back and forth with the Pharisees and even called them names, and all of a sudden you have your excuses again. That darn Bible just has an answer for everything. So maybe the real question is, what kind of Christian should you desire to be? One that takes the negative verses in the Bible to contribute towards the negative outcomes of insult and judgment and harshness and harm? Or do you rise above and you take the more supposedly elevated ideas from Jesus and turn the other cheek? Pray for those who persecute you. Have a kind and gentle answer. The boring parts of the Bible that really don't make for very good Christian content making. So I'll stop. I anticipate a flood of, but atheism this and what about that? And that's fine. You can say it all day, but it won't change the fact that what we have before us in the response by Christians to this particular debate and result has been overwhelmingly negative, hypocritical, tribalistic, shallow, and harmful. From a religion that is supposed to be advocating and displaying the opposite. So why is it happening? Pointing fingers at me won't answer it. I'm so excited for tomorrow's video. I hope to see you here, 9 a.m. Central Time. Until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support, my Iconoclast and Boris GVI, Joe, Kitboga, Perry, Rokkit, Shawn, and Tom, my Humanist heroes, James, Jarrod, Kristi, and Thronus, my Atheist advocates, Caleb, David, Jeff, Jeffrey, Lisa, Paul, Sparky, and Todd, as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. If you believe in the mission of this channel or you just enjoy its content, please consider joining these fine people. Thanks and have a great day.